Welcome to the DHIS2 augmentation session with commercial software. I am your moderator, Kristen Keller. I'm a senior director here of State Department Operations at Bao Systems, and I'd like to welcome you to our session right before a quick break here at 12:45 Eastern. This session is going to go over how DHIS2 as an open source product has had incredible success across the development sector. However, no one software can be everything to everyone. In this panel, we're going to look at 3 different use cases to show how various organizations have augmented open source DHIS2 with a commercial software and why this approach can provide best-in-class solutions for a variety of use cases. I'd like to welcome my panelists. We have from our PEPFAR Systems program, we have Mark Overman from Accenture Federal Services, which is also a silver sponsor. Mark is an international affairs and diplomacy executive with over 15 years of experience in the NGO and federal, university and federal consulting sectors. Mark is currently a senior manager at Accenture Federal Services, where he works to support global health and diplomacy programs for US federal government clients. Next, we have Bob Cahill. Bob is a consulting delivery director at DataStrong. He is a business analytics, technology, and digital transformation executive with 30 years of experience in the financial, healthcare, and federal consulting sectors. Bob's currently a service delivery senior manager at Smartronix, where he works to support global health and diplomacy programs for US federal government clients. Next up, you may know Sarah. Sarah Cyril is a senior project manager here at Bao Systems, and she has experience in health system strengthening and is an expert who's worked for the last 10 years on international digital health initiatives. Here at Bao, Sarah is a senior project manager and also works as the DATUM, which we're going to talk about soon, the DATUM product owner at PEPFAR, and group lead for data collection and analysis on the PEPFAR Prime Systems team. Tim Harding is our software architect and engineering manager here at Bao Systems. And as a software architect and engineering manager, Tim brings a keen eye for detail to Bao Systems. His career started with automating the creation of MER metadata and has grown into managing a team of developers and analysts. Tim continues to play a pivotal role in bringing on new data systems and new data streams into the PEPFAR family. And next up for our analytics platform from Bao Systems, Catherine and Lars are going to be talking about that. So Catherine is our director of analytics and also the AP product owner. She has 20 years of experience in research, M&E, health information system strengthening, and data analytics visualization. As the director of analytics and Bao Systems analytics platform product owner, she works closely with Lars to lead our data integration and analytics services. And last but not least, probably doesn't need any introduction, but Lars Overland is our Chief Data Officer and co-founder of Bao Systems. He's been the lead developer of the DHIS2 platform since its start in 2005. Lars is a co-founder and Chief Data Officer at Bao, leading the analytics team in developing integration and interoperability solutions to meet the growing needs of partners. I want to welcome all of our panelists and everyone to the audience. As a reminder, in this session, we do have a Q&A tab where you can ask questions. I will reserve probably around 12:30 Eastern. I'll reserve the last 15 minutes for us to go over your questions, so please take advantage of that, or feel free to chat with us in the chat section on the right. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Mark Overman to go over the PEPFAR Prime Systems commercial software tie-in to DHIS2. Welcome and thank you.
Great, thanks, Kristen. I appreciate it. I'm really happy to be here today with all of you, my colleagues from Bao and DataStrong, and all of you listening on the line. And I'm also really excited that Accenture Federal Services has been able to support this great event as a sponsor. Kristen, thanks for calling that out. Together as teaming partners, all of us are very proud to support the work of the Office of the Global AIDS Coordinator, or SGAC. I'm sure that so many of you in the symposium and here on this session are familiar with SGAC and PEPFAR, but just to go through this great program for a second, SGAC coordinates the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, PEPFAR. The success of PEPFAR has been incredible. Over the last 18 years, the program, as you can see here, has invested more than $85 billion into the fight against HIV/AIDS saving more than 20 million lives and helping many millions more to be on life-saving HIV/AIDS treatments. The success of PEPFAR has allowed all of us to imagine and to work towards the first AIDS-free generation. And as many of you are probably also familiar, data is at the core of PEPFAR and PEPFAR's success. Data allows the program to go where the virus is, to analyze which strategies and investments are working and to scale them, and then to look at which ones aren't as successful as we'd like them to be and recalibrate them. So yeah, Sarah, please jump to that second slide. Just a little bit of the intro to PEPFAR there to set the stage. And then what I want to do here is just give a very brief and high-level intro of the data flow and platforms that we're going to be talking about here for the rest of this session, or at least a portion of the session. Our Accenture, BAO, and DataStrong team builds and manages a network of systems that collect and analyze more than 120 million, I think that's the number, and growing, data points. And really, these tools are a backbone of PEPFAR and its operations. So in particular, the team today is going to be taking you through these three, maybe a bit more on the MicroStrategy side, key SGAC data systems, and the way in which the data flows through them and the way in which they connect to create a really robust set of systems. First, DATUM, which is SGAC's custom and global instance of DHIS2. Second, flowing to the PEPFAR Data Analytics Platform, also known for us as PDAP, which utilizes, you can see, AWS services. And then third, onto the Panorama Spotlight and PEPFAR Analytics Workspace, all of which are utilizing the MicroStrategy platform. So, and what we hope is that this panel will showcase for you how SGAC has worked to augment DHIS2 and really, as Kristen said, I think unleash its power by coupling it with these kinds of commercial softwares like AWS, like MicroStrategy, to really create a robust and effective data collection and analytics solution on behalf of PEPFAR and SGAC. That for me was just a little bit of scene setting. And now I'm really happy to pass it over to the rest of the team who are going to take you through, as the experts in these systems, all the data flow. So first, Sarah, I think I'm passing to you.
Okay, great. Had to get off mute.
Thanks, Sarah.
Hello. Okay, thanks, Mark and Kristen, for that great introduction. I'm going to talk first about sort of that first step in the high-level architecture that Mark just shared. And I am very fortunate that I think probably this crowd is very familiar with what DHIS2 is, so I won't spend too long on what that software actually is. But DATUM is, as Mark said, PEPFAR's custom version of DHIS2. It is PEPFAR's primary platform for ingestion of our monitoring and evaluation data from a diverse number of work streams. We leverage both native DHIS2 applications fairly heavily, and we also increasingly have a lot of custom DHIS2 applications that we use to be able to continue to leverage the DATUM platform as kind of the single place where implementing partners or agency users from USAID or CDC can log in and either enter or view data at the place where it's entered. So I'm not going to read these boxes to you here, and this actually isn't even exhaustive in terms of the number of data streams or workflows that we manage through DATUM. Many of you on this session are probably familiar with MIR, which is kind of our largest data stream. It's really sort of more traditional quarterly aggregate programmatic results reporting into DHIS2. It's a very large and complex data set. So this does use the native data entry app for DHIS2, but we use custom forms. Increasingly, we are leveraging some of the systems that are going to be talked about later today to be able to use custom applications to intake either Excel spreadsheets or other formats of data that are then parsed and sent along into other data warehouses or other analytic tools. So more recently introduced data streams are around human resources for health, which is literally an individual inventory of every PEPFAR-funded human resource in the world. It's anonymized, but it is individual level data. That's not using a native DHIS2 app. The same with expenditure reporting. Kind of the theme of today's session is that I love DHIS2, but I think like with anyone you love, that means that you know their limitations. And that's why I really like for things like expenditure reporting or some of these other data streams, we have had to sort of build out some of the capabilities where DHIS2's 3 core data models don't necessarily entirely meet our needs. Things like our VMMC adverse event reporting, this actually is a recent migration that utilizes the tracker capture app, and we were able to leverage the standard UIO immunization adverse events reporting app and tailor it for that use case. So again, I won't dwell too long on these, but just wanted to showcase kind of the diversity of the types of data that we're incorporating here, all at a single point of ingestion. We increasingly are investing as well in using the fairly robust built-in analytic features on DHIS2's dashboarding. You can see here that we have a custom dashboard app that allows us to link out to particular pivot tables. And we're also increasingly pushing out standard vetted by the Office of the Global AIDS Coordinator dashboards that showcase data that's obviously dynamically filtered based on the user. So just in summary, kind of showcasing the unique needs and scale that DHIS2 supports for PEPFAR. PEPFAR is a nearly $5 billion a year program, and this is a globally available platform for data ingestion for the entire program. We have an ever-changing user base, and they require highly customized data access permissions. And really, as DHIS2 is free and open source, this allows us to have that global footprint for that ever-changing user base of partners, USG agencies, State Department stakeholders. And we're now increasingly leveraging, and Tim will talk a little bit more about this, DATM is really the single point of authentication to access many different types of data and many ways to collect data. So just highlighting a few numbers here in terms of really the scope and scale of this DHIS2 instance. We have over 15,000 users globally. We have more than 200 million data values just in our DATM database alone, and more than 500,000 views of those standard analytic products that I shared since we introduced them. So now I'll pass along to sort of the next step in how our data is integrated and stored, and Tim is going to talk a little bit about PDAP.
Absolutely. All righty. So the PEPFAR Data Analytics Platform, or PDAP, is a Amazon Web Services cloud infrastructure which sits behind PEPFAR systems, performing a variety of services for secure, scalable, and tool-agnostic data transfer, transformation, and storage. So over there we have on the left, we've got our PEPFAR data that comes in via MER. I've got UNAIDS. We have data pack data, which informs target setting, especially effective during the yearly COP cycle where funds are competed for and distributed. And then we also have the actual financial data there at the bottom. And all of that gets put into our AWS cloud, which I'm calling PDAP here. And that is, we use various AWS services in there, the API Gateway, Redshift, DynamoDB, Lambda, which is running on state machines, and S3. And a lot of work is done to transform the data and make it readable and usable for folks downstream. And those folks can then pull that data out with a BI tool like MicroStrategy, and they also get a lot of their data sets as CSV files in Excel. Next slide. All right, so what do? We collect data. So we get the data via this cool thing called the data agent, or the DATM data agent. And it's kind of our version of it's a DHIS2 whisperer. It's able to grab specific bits of metadata and data that we need to propagate downstream. We validate data. So incoming data may have different validation issues that need to be addressed. And so we have various state machines that wake up and go and review financial data or review the human resources for health data. We catalog. We do a lot with budgeting for the agencies underneath PEPFAR, so USAID, HHS, CDC, and they have to have special projected schemas and way to query that data to make sure that everything looks good. We need to secure things. We have a lot of IAM policies, which are a way to make sure that folks only see what they need to see. and we can limit access to data at a group or individual level. And we are adding a custom authenticator for some of our other streams. We'll talk about that in a second. We integrate, we combine our various data streams so that the data itself, A, makes more sense because we're adding context, and B, allows for better decision making, because when you tie in things like SIMS data, MER data, ER data, HRH data all together, then as a program, you're able to make better decisions on what to do the following year. We transform data. We got our start in just denormalizing data. And so we do a lot of that for MER every day. And then we store it. It's not called a data lake for nothing. We use a lot of AWS S3 to keep all of our data stored. So how do we do it? We have our data agent, we have S3, we have Redshift, we have Dynamo, we have state machines, APIs, ETLs. I'm not going to go through each of those. Yeah, there's quite a bit going on. Let's go on to the last slide. So how did PDAP evolve? It began as a way to make data more DHIS2 data available to an external BI tool known as MicroStrategy. And the primary users of this tool were USG staff, including the ambassador. And the ambassador kind of sits and parks her nose in front of these dossiers, these views, these chapters, these reports, and looks at them, almost refreshes them daily to see the snapshot of how PEPFAR is doing. Following this, more external data sets were added for more meaningful visualizations. We brought in things such as the SIMS data or the ER data, or even things from UNAIDS and the COVID-19 data from the AWS Data Exchange. And we started offering a feature called Bring Your Own Data. And so for some of our power users, they can then set up data sets and work with us to get that into the PDAP so that it can be correlated with existing data sets. In 2017, the PDAP started taking an active role in processing incoming files. So we get our financial data via Excel templates, and then those are validated and then normalized and sent downstream for different reports and views and data sets. And now we have expanded to cover 4 different data streams with that same process. And then our latest news, as Sarah mentioned, we are now providing identity services for some of our applications so that the PDAP actually knows who you are when you want to use a service and what you're allowed to see. And so this just rolled out this week. So we're very happy and proud of that feature. And so with that, I'm going to hand this off to Bob, who's going to take over and talk about that BI tool that takes in all of this data.
Hey, thanks so much, Tim. Before we go ahead and get started, I just wanted to share that all of the great work that happens within Datum and that what PDAP collects from a data perspective, that data and that data capability not only provides the ability for the program and the headquarters to do a lot of business analytics, and we'll go into that a little bit from an enterprise perspective, but also is agnostic that other tools such as Tableau, RStudio, Power Builder can be used by those folks that participate in the program to be able to leverage. So what I am going to go over is that from an enterprise perspective or across PEPFAR, the standard tools for the business analytics and the visualizations is MicroStrategy, which is the principal tool, but the way that is broken down, or how we use MicroStrategy, is what I wanted to kind of share with you today, and how we're able to leverage all of that great data. If we can go to the next slide. So a little bit about MicroStrategy as far as commercial software is concerned. For those that aren't familiar with it, it's a business intelligence software, and it allows PEPFAR as a program to take this data, to integrate it, to be able to analyze it, and use it in so many different ways because we're able to take a look at different views of this, which was from the business value perspective, to not only analyze, but also to take a look at, putting in their plans, how we're comparing against that plan from a point in time perspective. We can take a look at trending. What's nice is that not only is it used from a reporting perspective, but we can generate data sets that could be used by the user for doing their own hashing if they want to, if the standard visualizations aren't there. And then also monitors. A little bit more about MicroStrategy is it does have that capability of sophistication, allows drill down capability. As Tim had mentioned, the MicroStrategy term for dashboards or chapters that you're able to visualize, they use the term dossiers, but in essence, up until a couple of years ago, that was dashboards, and we still say dashboards a lot for that analytics. And so MicroStrategy allows PEPFAR to provide a number of different capabilities for the program. As you can anticipate, there is a lot of focus in being able to monitor, plan, see how we're doing against the programs and investments from the internal agencies that are a part of PEPFAR within the USG. There is a lot of information that we want to share on the progress of PEPFAR to the public and to our external partners and just those in general that are looking for information, as well as from an internal perspective, allow a workspace capability so that if there are something new that comes in, anyone that from an internal perspective that we had just rolled out can actually develop their own dashboards or dossiers with not only using PEPFAR data that's in PDAP, but additionally they can also bring in their own data as well if they want to take a look at it, for an example, from a country perspective. Next slide. So just summarizing a little bit about the three different types of visualizations that we provide for PEPFAR using the commercial software MicroStrategy. We have Panorama, which is actually the title of the system that the headquarters and internal use that have the standard visualizations. We have Panorama, or actually should be the PEPFAR Analytic Workspace, PAW that allows Panorama users to actually develop their own dossiers, and Spotlight, Panorama Spotlight is actually our public facing. So there's a little bit of information there. Again, the big part is to take a look at that visualization, being able to drill down, to take a look at how we're doing point in time, how we're doing from a plan perspective, and make our adjustments there. That's the power of the data that's being collected and put together from data, and then the additional information that we're able to get from PDAP. So just being able to use the power of that data and being able to put the business analytics in space. The next couple of pages are really just kind of a show of what that analytics looks like. This is the Panorama Spotlight, which is our public facing. Very similar in Panorama as well for the internal agencies, but if you did a Google on Panorama Spotlight, you can pull up this visualization, and it gives key information. If you take a look at it, there's some basic things if you want to take a look at a particular piece of it for all of the global countries that we have. And if you take, thanks a lot for moving to the next page. I realize this is a little bit of an eye chart, but when you actually go into this program, you're actually able to take a look at what the plan was, how we're resulting against that. You're able to do it by country, on that middle screen where it talks about contents, you can actually take a look at it from that perspective. You can have the drill down capability to look even further if, let's say, that there are specific regions within a country that you want to take a look at, but just wanted to share that as well. And this provides that information that both the program and our external partners are looking for to really take a look at eradicating AIDS globally. One of the big visuals, or actually one of the big public-facing items or events that we do is called World AIDS Day. Actually on December the 1st, same as for every year. The ambassador actually does a call externally and actually reviews using the tools in Spotlight to share globally how well the program is doing, take a look at not only individual countries and some of the stories behind them, but say, hey, this is the progress that we've made, this is the challenges that we still face, and here are the things that we're looking at to go ahead and improve the program. So as Tim had mentioned before, the ambassador is very key on using these tools. Not only, from an internal perspective is this being used, but also at the top of the house from the ambassador, and this is how the ambassador does a lot of the communication out globally as well. So a great integration and use of commercial, commercial tools in support of what DHIS2 provides. So just wanted to share that. So I'll go ahead and turn it back to Kristen.
Awesome. Thank you so much for all of the interesting information on how the PEPFAR systems connects all the way from DHIS2 down to MicroStrategy. As I reminded folks, don't forget to take advantage of that Q&A tab on the right-hand side in your sessions tab, and we'll be taking those once Catherine and Lars finish up. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Catherine Liu to go over our analytics platform. So Catherine and Lars, take it away.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Thanks everyone for joining us today. In this portion of the session, Lars and I will share how we've augmented DHIS2 with the BAO Analytics Platform to conduct better, faster, and more comprehensive data analysis to support decision-making with our partners. So this is just a quick peek at what we'll be discussing in the next 15 minutes or so. So first we'll look at the business challenge and gaps in analytics, and then Lars will share a little bit more information on the technical aspects of our platform. And then we'll get into sharing some results and really demonstrate how we're able to achieve improved analytics. So given the number of symposium participants this year and the fact that I have the DHIS2 tech lead co-presenting with me, I think we can all agree that we love DHIS2. And like Sarah mentioned earlier, and Kristen as well, despite our love for DHIS2, it's impossible for a single software to meet every single data need by the wide variety of users that are currently using the system. So in the following slides, I'm going to highlight some of the business challenges we've seen our partners encounter and how we've been able to address those challenges using the BAO Analytics Platform. So while DHIS2 is the most commonly used information system across health and development organizations and governments, in addition to that, other systems and tools are also implemented in parallel with varying degrees of interoperability. Data collected in separate systems are often analyzed in silo without easy and repeatable methods for continuously integrating data for analysis purposes. Given the large data ecosystem outside of a project's M&E system or a country's HMIS, we need a scalable way to integrate DHIS2 data with other systems. In addition to the vast amounts of routine programmatic data that are generated, there's also an abundance of both program-specific and public data sets that, despite being available, are often under-accessed and underutilized. Due to the structure, data model, frequency of data collection, or other reasons, these data are often not appropriate for ingesting into DHIS2 to combine directly with our program data.
Following the need for better methods for integrating multiple and varied data sets, there's also a need for more comprehensively analyzing program DHIS2 data together with these public and other external data sources to better understand the context in which our programs operate. While DHIS2 offers a robust data model, there are constraints to aligning external data sets with standardized metadata in DHIS2 and or aligning DHIS2 data with other external global reporting standards. There's a need for well-orchestrated data cleansing, transformation, and alignment capabilities within a platform. As some of you may have learned in the bootcamp session earlier today, as well as with Lars's roadmap presentation, the analytic capabilities of DHIS2 has vastly grown in the last several years and is continuing to grow. However, demands for advanced analytics, including machine learning and AI, are exponentially increasing. Analysts require easy methods for availing DHIS2 data as well as other data sets together for more advanced analytics. M&E staff, analysts, statisticians, and data scientists have a range of skill sets and preferred tools for performing their analysis. Too often, users are still manually exporting DHIS2 data and importing the data into other analytic and visualization tools. Having streamlined methods for data sharing or just from DHIS2, not just from DHIS2, but from other systems as well, with different users to perform their analysis is still a need. Similarly, data end users have a range of digital and data literacy skills that affect their ability to consume and use data for decision-making. Oftentimes, senior management, executives, and other external stakeholders do not need or want to access DHIS2 to view their data. The ability to make DHIS2 data available in other more user-friendly formats and visualization-focused tools would improve the delay in getting important insights into the hands of decision makers faster and more efficiently, and encourage them to use the data for their own programmatic decision-making. I'm going to turn it over to Lars to talk a little bit more about our approach to developing a fit-for-purpose solution in the high-level platform architecture.
Great, thanks, Catherine. So, yeah, so the vision we had behind the analytics platform was really to develop a flexible and managed solution that could build on organization government's existing instances and basically extend the systems to add more capabilities. Because we did see in the landscape that countries had and organizations had data in DHIS2, they had data in ComCare, they had data in homegrown HMIS solutions and so on, but there's definitely a need to be able to bring all those data together and do analysis in one place. And so we built a system that allows you to basically take those different data sources, and then we have turnkey connectors to some of the more popular platforms out there, such as ComCare, ODK, ONA, and so forth. The second goal was to also provide access to what we call a public dataset library, so that we know that there's a lot of those publicly available datasets out there which could bring a lot of value to your analysis. And there's an increasing number of organizations now which basically offer and publicize datasets that definitely could be used to enhance and enrich analysis that's based on the data that you already have. We also wanted to build a platform that could be the basis for harnessing the use of machine learning. We know that machine learning can be kind of hard to grasp, hard to utilize, and kind of do something actionable. But we wanted to build a platform that could make it possible for people to take small steps towards harnessing the use of machine learning, especially around predictions, but also data quality, outlier detection, alerts for particular cases, and so forth. And finally, we know that while DHIS2 has increasingly better analysis features now, more capacity when it comes to visualizations, analytics, and so on, there's still a need very often to use existing knowledge and existing investments in BI tools like Power BI or Tableau and the usual suspects, and utilize those with all those data, right, without having to get the data out of DHIS2 all the time, because we know that DHIS2 isn't sort of ideal when it comes to those scenarios where you basically want all the data. Like, just give me all the data and let me use Power BI or Excel and so on. Excuse me. So next slide, Catherine. Yeah, so just a minute on the architecture of the platform that we've built. So as you can see in the center, we basically allow for turnkey connectors to the systems I mentioned, ODK, Kobo, Medic Mobile, DHIS2, of course, that allow you to very easily then ingest those data into a shared platform, which is the Bao Analytics Platform. And those connectors will basically take the data and lay it out in a sensible format in the data lake, and later in the embedded data warehouse that we have in the platform, so that there's nothing you need to do to have a good starting point for doing analysis. As an example, we will inspect like a Concur instance, we will look at the metadata of projects, and then we will lay it out in an analysis-friendly format, both in data lake and in the data warehouse. And then you can connect with your favorite BI tool and then do analysis based on that. We also support 2 public clouds, which are AWS and Azure for Microsoft. And so we use the different sort of data lake, data warehouse offerings that those platforms have to offer, meaning blob storage and SQL database or Synapse in Azure, and then S3 and Redshift in Amazon. We also extend to support the use of those built-in data pipeline, data orchestration tools that some of these clouds provide. In AWS, the favorite tool there would be Glue, and then in Azure, that would be Data Factory, which is our built-in managed service for data integration. So when it comes to those cases where we need to go custom or we need to utilize off-the-shelf connectors like Salesforce and so on, then we can turn to those kind of provided managed services. And that would also allow us then to do custom processing for things like JSON files or Excel, Access files and those type of file-based connectors, but also to other information systems that might be out there and that you would like to be doing through more of a custom analysis job. Yeah, and then the platform, of course, makes it easy to discover data. We have a built-in data catalog, which means you can easily find the data sets in your organization. Those data sets can be tagged, labeled, and you can add custom metadata to the data sets. We have access control around every data set so that you can expose only a piece of your data to particular uses as opposed to everything. We also allow you to download the data, of course, view statistics around the pipelines and so on and so on. Yeah, and finally, you can then take whatever BI tool you prefer and then connect directly to the platform, and then do queries like ad hoc queries, explorative analysis directly against the data warehouse using a live connection, meaning there's no need to kind of download a subset of the data, process it, and so on. You can do a live connection to the entire data set, which of course is very beneficial because that's what data warehouses do best, and also allow you to do queries analysis across the entire data set as opposed to just a slice of the data. Yeah, so that would be the architecture of the platform in a nutshell. So back to you, Catherine.
Great, thanks. So for the remainder of the presentation, we just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the results that we've observed in terms of how the analytics platform has resulted in improved analytic capabilities and business processes. So as Lars mentioned, we built a number of easy-to-use data pipelines to ingest data from DHIS2 and other common sources to address the struggle of comprehensively analyzing data across systems. The user interface, we've built an intuitive user interface, making it easy for M&E specialists like myself who do not have programming or data engineering skill sets to easily ingest new data without relying on IT teams to help us to perform the work. Once data are ingested, as Lars mentioned, they're available for manipulation, alignment, and querying in a variety of different business intelligence tools. And so we're really using sort of our user interface and pre-built connectors to make this an accessible platform for users. So in this example, you can just sort of see a screenshot from our data catalog where you can see that a number of different data sources have been ingested into this instance of the AP. You see different types of files such as CSV, DHIS2 connection, and other public data sets that we've ingested into this particular instance. And all of this is being stored in a centralized data lake and data warehouse and are available for querying and analysis. We continue to seek input into other frequently used systems and tools to build new data pipelines, and so feedback and suggestions are definitely welcome from the community. To address the challenge around reducing barriers to using public data sets, we compiled a curated library of data relevant to health and development programs. Examples include data from the Demographic and Health Survey Program, WHO's Global Health Observatory, UN Population Prospects, the Food and Agriculture Organization, as well as extensive COVID-19 surveillance and vaccine distribution data. Use of these data together with routine program data can really enhance our understanding of the context in which our programs operate, support a health system strengthening or health systems approach to data analysis and understanding sort of cause and effect, and contribute to program evaluation. The compiled data sets are available for one-click ingestion into the analytics platform, and it's also freely available through the BAO Open Data Gateway. When you guys get the slides later on, you'll be able to see the URL for the Open Data Gateway, where you can actually go in and access any of these data sets and download them for your own personal use. So in the example that we're showing here, we worked with a partner to bring public data together to help the program better understand the context in which they're operating, prioritize key health interventions and geographies where impact will be the greatest, and identify where to allocate resources accordingly. So for this particular instance, we are looking at data taken from the Demographic and Health Survey Program, as well as Track 2020 data and Countdown 2030 data. And this is really used to help inform a reproductive, maternal, and child health program. And essentially what we will be doing with these data is combining it with program data to look at how progress has changed through the result of interventions from the program. We address the challenge around metadata alignment in multiple ways through our platform. So firstly, transformations can be applied to data as they're ingested, and with each refresh, they are reapplied, and that helps to increase staff efficiencies. Transformations and calculations of complex indicators are decoupled from data entry, which helps to reduce strain on the overall system. And the creation of reproducible data views saves staff time and effort. And so as an example, you can create a materialized table view where essentially you are joining data from different data sources. So in this example, we're looking at a ComCare data set, a DHIS2 data set, and a data set collected using Kobo Toolbox. And what we're able to do within that platform is to actually take, for example, the organizational unit hierarchy in DHIS2 and join them to the ComCare and Kobo data sets so that all of the data can be aligned to a single organizational hierarchy. Once these views or table views are created, they're available to other users, regardless of the visualization tool used to display the data. And so this really helps to increase staff efficiencies and that you're performing at once and then able to share across your project, across your organization, or across ministries, these newly created table joins. Looking at the business challenge around performing more advanced analytics, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, essentially our platform architecture, like Lars described, allows for data to be accessed through the data lake and data warehouse, for machine learning and AI through open source tools, commercial off-the-shelf tools, as well as to custom R and Python algorithms. Use of machine learning and AI techniques can help program managers conduct faster, more accurate data quality checks for internal consistency, anomaly or outlier detection, and forecasting for program planning. So to talk a little bit about how we've actually used this within our own practice at Bao Systems, we leveraged publicly available PEPFAR Panorama Spotlight data. Thank you to our PEPFAR colleagues on this call for making that available widespread to the public. And essentially, we developed a proof of concept using Amazon Forecast, which is an auto machine learning tool to support anomaly detection and forecasting. Now, just thinking about your own programs, within our regular routine M&E, we regularly conduct time series analysis across key indicators of interest to look at the trends. However, without the use of statistical methods, it can be challenging to identify true anomalies just by looking at a run chart. When you take a step back and look at data over several years, a seasonal pattern emerges, compounding the difficulty in knowing whether a data point is actually unusually high. Use of forecasting combined with anomaly detection and confidence interval of 95%, we observe that an actual value, or the percent of women with known HIV status in this case, was actually lower than the forecasted value, which you can see in the dark gray line here, as well as the predicted interval, which is in the light gray shading. So this leads us to believe that there was a gap in services in the last quarter, and it's something that could be investigated further. Similar approaches to this can be used to forecast commodity needs based on past utilization trends and seasonal fluctuations, for example. Kristen, I think I have like 2 more slides.
Okay, yeah, no, just a time check. We'll start questions in a minute. Thank you, everyone.
In order to better meet the varying needs of data analysts and end users, our platform architecture, like Lars said earlier, enables a really plug and play approach. So the best data analysis and visualization tool is the one that people will use. Having an arsenal of tools that readily integrates with your data system will enable you to better meet the range of needs and facilitate data use across all different types of stakeholders. Having a large set of analytic tools to choose from enables staff to use existing skill sets. So for example, GIS specialists can create more complex maps using ArcGIS. Statisticians and epidemiologists can ingest data into SPSS, SAS, or Stata. And organizations already using Microsoft at an organizational and enterprise level can use Power BI. Within a project, organization, or government, data stakeholders have varying levels of data literacy and require different levels of granularity, meaning that there often isn't a one-size-fits-all approach to generating consumable data products to meet their needs. Greater flexibility in data visualization and sharing can improve data accessibility and ultimately its use. So with this example, data are ingested across DHIS2, ComCare, and Salesforce systems. And this is just an example of how data from multiple systems can be ingested, aligned, and used to generate actionable insights and really expand sort of our analytic capabilities beyond just what we've been traditionally doing in DHIS2. So with that, thank you for your time, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of our panelists from PEPFAR Prime Systems and to Lars and Catherine for the BAO Analytics Platform. Thank you so much to everyone attending. We have your questions here. So I'm actually going to start with one that came in early on. It's actually for the PEPFAR Systems team. So can you elaborate a bit on the analytics that you couldn't accomplish in DHIS2, so you had to use other BI tools like MicroStrategy? So maybe Sarah, I'll start with you, since Datum, was the original piece there, and why we ended up tethering things to accomplish some of the analytics, and then maybe go to Bob.
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's sort of multiple flavors of answers, I think. So I'll try to be brief. I think one sort of, if anyone, I think they're looking at the list of people, there's quite a few people here who have sort of infectious disease or HIV backgrounds. It's really critical right now for epidemic control that we be looking at something like interruption in treatment or maintaining clients on treatment. And currently that requires sort of like comparing between time periods, which we're unable to do on Datum at the moment, although there are some very cool new features of indicators over time that we are exploring. I see Lars wants to say that, specifically around things like net new clients on treatment. We're exploring being able to replicate in Datum, but we don't really have the same flexibility to adapt to those sorts of new types of indicators that are more complex, as Catherine was mentioning. It is much easier to have that data in a data warehouse and be able to sort of knit it together the way you need. One of the other main challenges that we face is that the largest data set that we maintain in Datum The MER data set that I mentioned earlier, many people are probably familiar that changes every year. It's a core set of indicators, but it gets tweaked every single year. So it can be really difficult to trend that over time in DHIS2. Our colleagues who work on the MicroStrategy platform and on PDAP work really hard to kind of knit those different definitions of indicators together on the back end so that it can be trended over time. And then lastly, this might be sort of silly, but actually there's a big aspect of kind of look and feel. I personally think the dashboards in DHIS2 are beautiful, but they're not really PEPFAR branded. They're not able to be organized in, the exact way that a particular specialist might want to see it. So there is sort of that need for like accessibility and customability of how this data is represented. I don't know, Bob, if you wanted to share anything.
No, I think that you hit the nail on the head, Sarah. I mean, obviously, data DHIS2 provides a lot of great information. As Tim had mentioned earlier, as you did, Sarah, there's so much new data that's coming in, so that tying data information together and being able to show that there is a little bit more flexibility, at least before what recently has come out in the DHIS2. And obviously there's a lot of interagency approvals, reviews, country reviews on how they'd like to see that data. So that standardization and branding is a piece of it too. So.
Yeah. It's a really good point. And I really liked what Catherine said about, the best way for people to access data is in the way that's easiest for them. For the implementing partners in the field who must log into data, they're contractually obligated to log into Datum to report these results. They're already there. So the dashboards in DHIS2 are meeting them where they are, right? For many of sort of our USAID or CDC colleagues, they have no reason to really be in Datum to access that data. So it is, sort of a contextual or audience segmentation question as well.
Wonderful. All right, well, we have about 9 minutes left, a couple more questions. I'm actually gonna couple two of them together because one of them was asking about other examples of commercial software beyond the analytics software that maybe DHIS2 has been integrated with, such as point of care systems. And someone else was also asking off-the-shelf database management tools that could be helpful in the event they don't have the resources, to build out the system that's been described here. So whoever would like to take that. But again, other examples of DHIS2, software integrated, such as point of care systems and or database management tools. I don't know, maybe Tim or Catherine?
Go ahead, Catherine.
I was just going to say, in terms of integration of DHIS2 with other systems, I think, at least from the BAO perspective, we have a lot of experience, and other providers also have a lot of experience in facilitating integration and interoperability between different systems. I think when it comes to point of care systems like EMRs, there's always sort of the requirements aspect of understanding whether or not you actually want to bring in patient level data into DHIS2 or whether you want to aggregate that in the EMR and then bring over aggregate data. And there's definitely examples of both. I think most oftentimes we would probably advocate to aggregate the data in the EMR and then bring that over to DHIS2. But definitely with a lot of the new security features that are coming out in DHIS2, that might start to change. I think we also have been working on CommCare to DHIS2 integration as well. And we also, from the BAO systems perspective, also have sort of COBO and /ODK integration, and that goes over into DHIS2 events, and that is actually freely available, and you can get more information on our website around that. But in general, I think that there is a large movement around integration and interoperability, regardless of whether, provider, and just the needs for that and finding a scalable solution. And so I think when you're thinking about approaches, there's sort of the whole system in the room approach that I think both PEPFAR and Bao Systems has taken, where we really want to have that data lake and data warehouse architecture where you can kind of bring whatever data you want in whatever format you want and sort of dump it in a central repository and then figure out what to do with it afterwards and how to align it. And then there's sort of the, at the project level, I think that there's a lot of talks about sort of these one-off integrations between two different systems. And at some point, though, you end up having, a connector between two different systems, and then that has a connector to another system, which has a connector to another system. And you end up really building sort of a spider web. And so thinking just about sort of architecture and sort of long-term needs, figuring out which approach is actually the right for sort of scalability and long-term sustainability. And then just quickly on the other sort of data platforms, I think that there's also a number of other data platforms out there that sort of offer the same features as the PEPFAR PDAP, as well as the BAO Analytics Platform. Don't know if they're any cheaper to implement. I think certainly they all sort of have their pros and cons, but I would imagine that a lot of them are really based on the same architectural principles of a data lake and data warehouse structure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine. That's great. Sarah, Tim, Bob, anything as far as like other database management tools or connecting beyond, analytics?
Yeah, I mean, I would mostly echo most of what Catherine said. And both of these questions, I think, are like, you can tell by the number of thumbs up. They're some of the best ones we've gotten. It's a good reflection. These are like very mature systems, right? This is an audience of DHIS2 implementers, this is like DHIS2 plus. So I agree, like it would be interesting to kind of come up with like that inventory of what those off-the-shelf tools might be that you could connect. In terms of more of like the downstream, either point of care or someone's mentioning like immunization registries, things like that, it's very telling that what we have been talking about today is mostly upstream of data collection, right? The analysis. So you have a lot more control of that, and it's a lot. It's not easy, but I think it's probably easier than the prospect of integrating, electronic medical records where there's 4 different versions of an EMR deployed in a country that we're working in, and then you have to map it all. But certainly that is what we are moving towards. That is the ideal. We haven't done it yet, but I think it's an astute observation. As Catherine said, there is, BAO has done a lot of connector work, but I think it was in the last session that Lars was saying, I'm not really sure connectors are the place to focus. It's more focusing on the approach and how we're going to operationalize getting downstream systems into our DHIS2 systems. So I do think platforms like these analytic platforms can be leveraged, but it is interesting that we're focusing here mostly on upstream of data collection.
Exactly. Wonderful. Someone had mentioned, is probably you, Tim or Sarah, that we're using Datum as an identity provider. So they were, folks were asking, what is that exactly? What does it do?
Sure. So Datum, we've got 15,000 folks that are in it, and at least 3,000 that are using it every month. And each of those folks has kind of like an identity that's associated with them. So they're a partner user for Chemotics. They are an agency user for USAID. They are a global partner user for Johns Hopkins, or a global user for USG. And we have external processing tools that need to be aware of who those people are so that we can apply, are they authorized to see this particular bit of data? Can we authenticate them through Datum? And can we do this kind of like seamlessly so that they can use these external tools without needing to log in again? So single sign-on. And so what's really cool, what we just kind of implemented, which is a custom authenticator on the AWS stack that will actually use the token that is used to authenticate with Datum for external systems to then challenge that token and see, what groups are they in, what country are they associated with, what roles do they play in the system. And so when I have someone coming in who needs to upload an expenditure reporting template and they accidentally send it to the Human Resources for Health system, it'll say, sorry, I can't accept that template. You're not authorized to give me one of those. Talk to your user manager.
Wonderful. All right, we have one more question, a couple of minutes left. Nicola was asking if we could describe a use case where data is put into the analytic platform and then pushed back into DHIS2. So Lars or Catherine, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so that's a use case that we have been thinking a lot about lately. And you could argue that, and so what Nicola is saying is basically a flow where you would first pull data into the analytics platform using whatever connector you have available there, which will then end up in a kind of a normalized data lake or data warehouse format. And then what we're thinking about now is to build a connector from the data warehouse down to DHIS2 essentially. And this is kind of a trend we see in terms of integration, that people actually use data warehouses to aggregate and filter and process data, and then pull that data into operational systems like DHIS2. And the benefit there would be, as I said, you could use the power of the data warehouse and all those technologies that surround data lakes and public clouds today, like machine learning, and to do kind of advanced processing, filtering, augmenting the data, and then you could benefit from those data back in a system like DHIS2, where you again can combine it then with other data streams and whatever you can collect in DHIS2. And the other benefit would be that you then have a uniform interface for integration, right? Because then, as long as you kind of process the data into a format that's suitable for ingestion into DHIS2, then you now just have to be in one connector, right, from the data lake or warehouse into DHIS2, and then you can use SQL or Spark or whatever necessary to put the data in the right format. But then it's just one uniform connector to get the data into DHIS2, which could save work in terms of building all these spider webs of connectors that Catherine said. So that would be the main motivation for such an effort. That's something we're working on, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely.
Kristen, just to add to that, I think two different use cases that immediately come to my mind, one of which we are definitely working on right now is being able to take Salesforce data from Salesforce, and then push that back into DHIS2. And so if we're needing to link essentially a tracked entity from Salesforce and link it to another tracked entity into DHIS2, that the data would first come through the analytics platform and then go back out to DHIS2, so that we're not having to establish Salesforce to DHIS2 connection directly.
Great.
The second use case is around potentially a master facility list and being able to take sort of the org units and facilities within a MFL and really bring that from an external MFL system, which could also be DHIS2, and then being able to push that back into another DHIS2 instance.
Wonderful. Well, I am pleased to say we're actually out of time, and these have been awesome questions. I wish we had more time, but I do want to thank everyone, Mark, Sarah, Tim, and Bob from the PEPFAR Prime Systems team, as well as Catherine and Lars from the Bao Systems Analytics Platform.